You're listening to Let's Talk Real Estate, and today we're joined by Sophia Bryan, managing attorney at Law Boss. She's here to share some valuable insight on how land and property should be properly managed, especially when it comes to inheritance, family land, and land disputes. Welcome back, Sophia.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
No, we're happy you're here. We're so excited.
Can't wait to get into it.
We're so excited. We really can't wait. No, let's just jump right into it.
Yes.
The family land tangle, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to give you this scenario, right? So we hear this all the time. My grandfather left a piece of land for all I'm pitting them,
Yes.
and but there's no will. I know everybody wants a piece. Now, what happens in a case like that?
Yes, very, very common scenario because Jamaicans feel that if you prepare a will, you're calling down dead on yourself.
Yes.
They're like, let the people figure it out. So we have a process called applying for a grant of administration. So what will happen is the family would have to determine who is the appropriate person in the line of succession. So there's actually a succession line according to our laws. The primary person, as you probably know, is the spouse if the person was married or they were in a common law relationship. If there's no spouse or if that person doesn't want to fulfill their obligation, then it falls down on the children.
Right.
So the children all have equal rights. So they can either apply to the court jointly or they can all select one person who will make the application on their behalf before any division of land can take place. So they have to follow that court protocol. So hopefully they can live good enough to select one person to, seek the court's assistance to get a grant of administration.
Is there like a time frame, like for argument's sake, if this happened, say in the 80s,
Yes.
right? Honeybee and I, our siblings and Jerome, our father drop out and now we're grown people and we're just saying, you know what? This hasn't been working out for the last couple of years. We don't really know who, should divide up the land. Is there a time frame that we can actually bring this to the court?
Right. So as long as the asset is still there, in this case it's land, there isn't necessarily a time frame. What you have to be mindful of is if all the children, pass on, for example, which I have cases where people have passed on, then it falls down on, maybe grandchildren. And our laws do not make any provision for grandchildren
So they
to
would
apply
you just lose the land in that case?
So it's just in a state of abyss,
Limbo.
and nobody can really get a proper title in that situation. So essentially, everybody will just have to live and have the understanding that it's our family land. But there are a few workarounds, but very costly, and so there's no limitation per se, but it really does, as succession, it really matters who is alive at the time and whether they're from that standpoint, everybody could pass away.
Does the land make provision for firstborn? In some countries, it's the firstborn that gets, the bulk of the estate and therefore is responsible for dividing it.
Well, fortunately, no. There's no such thing. I can't even speak to like my own family situation.
Yeah.
My mother had 6 of us. And she would have passed away when I was very young. Now, I'm the only lawyer of the 6 of us. But the older sister, who is sort of like the matriarch of the family, we all agreed that she would be the one to sort out the paperwork. She would sign all the affidavits and so forth. But she was like, you sure you don't want to do it? And I'm like, no, I will, I'll let you do it because everybody sees you as that person. So fortunately, no, all the children have the same amount of right, so anyone can choose to make the application to the court.
Okay. All right. All right, let's move on now. Fast selling without proper documents. Yes, like, you inherit a house, but you want to sell it right away to pay off debts.
Yes. So in a situation like that, if you know that you're the person that inherited it, chances are there is a will. So wills have to go through a probate process. So you have to seek a grant of probate. So again, you have to go back to the court.
That sounds like it take long.
No, it doesn't. All right. So I've seen instances where it happens within a year. That's a reasonable amount of time, especially if persons act quickly and present all the necessary documents that we need, like the original death certificate for the deceased and anybody who has an interest in the land, all the original documents. So usually there's no delays. So if there's a will and the executors hopefully are still alive, then we then we do have to go through a process with the court to make alternative arrangements. But it can happen within a year. I have personally seen it. So the land cannot be sold until
you've done that bit.
However, you can start fielding offers if persons, understand that, look, this is a estate situation. You have to wait until this part is completed. Nothing is wrong with fielding offers. But no, ink can go to paper until you have that grant of probate in hand.
Yeah, don't take the people them money.
Not a good idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Please and thank you. Now let us talk about absent beneficiary holding up the sale, right? So I'm
Yes.
going to go back to the inherited land.
Yes.
Okay, so several siblings, they're ready to sell a piece of inherited land, but one brother migrated 20 years ago, right? Ghana foreign. This person is now unresponsive.
Yes.
How does the law deal with absent beneficiaries?
Right, so you have to put the value, their share in a trust.
Okay.
So, right, so hopefully, if you have an attorney and they have the means to hold on to those funds, that's what you have to do. You can't spend it, right? You can't just pretend that the person is not alive. If they have issue, meaning they have children, then you can possibly give it to them or whoever their, legatees are. But you can't just spend people money. You can't just pretend that they're not there.
Let them exist
Right.
at all.
The good thing though is whomever is the administrator for the estate, depending on the amount of money, so say it's millions of dollars that's just sitting there, rather than allowing the funds to sit there, the executor or the administrator for the estate, they have the power to find some kind of safe investment vehicle. So maybe like a little mutual fund, maybe like a security of deposit where you get some safe money, no high risk, nothing.
Right.
That option is there so that the estate can benefit while we're waiting for this person to appear.
Okay, well, man. Okay, so let's look at this issue here, right? Many might overlook this, but a family wants to sell ancestral land.
Yes.
But the title was never registered.
Yes.
Only an outdated common law deed exists.
Yes.
What are the complications here?
I know you know about this.
Oh, yes.
Hey!
Oh, yes.
You must know
Oh,
about
yes.
this.
Yes.
People just, somebody come from Germany or England,
Yeah.
settled on the land, and it just kept passing on, and there's no title anywhere. So our laws do make provision for the registration of land under what's called the Registration of Titles Act, and land has to be put under that jurisdiction in order to get a title. So there are a couple of steps that have to be followed. So you have to get a survey pre-check plan, stating what the boundaries for the land are, and then you have to find people who live in the area that can speak to the fact that you are the rightful owners.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
we're not
'cause I was
going
gonna
to
ask,
take
how do you prove this?
Right, so evidence is needed from people that live in the community that can speak to who the true owners are. And of course, these people need to be of a certain age.
Them
Right.
up their own long time
Long-
we need to see.
Precisely.
Your appearance and so on.
Exactly. So somebody has to be able to attest to that. And I don't think it's a tedious process. The good thing about our government is that they've recognized that this is a big issue, and they've actually equipped agencies like the National Land Agencies, attorneys like myself. We have gotten training about the process because they want people to get their title so that you can use it to benefit you, whether it's collateral for different things. But there's a process that you can follow, and attorneys like myself, we're trained in the process to get it done. Yeah.
You are right. These are some very common issues, especially in rural Jamaica. I feel like a lot of families go through this where you just pass on land. There's no paperwork.
Yeah.
You just,
You just live.
you just live.
Yeah.
No formalization. So
Yeah.
you're right. Kudos to the government for ensuring that there are easy ways to get that done.
Indeed.
I've got call my father.
Ask
You
if
know
have
you
the
should,
title.
because
Yeah.
listen,
Ask if you have the title for
if
your land.
land is just sitting down there, you can even, you only need a quarter of an acre. A quarter of an acre in certain places is very expensive,
Yeah.
So you don't even have to release everything. So say it's several acres or even 1 acre. You can split that into quarter of an acre, and you can get some money, so you don't have to give up everything. So it's a good use of your time. So I'm encouraging you, if you know
Yes.
about something somewhere,
I shall
check
ask
it out.
him.
Yeah.
Might as well, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling him don't have a title.
Now, this one is pretty prevalent, especially in
Yeah.
Jamaica. The squatter turned owner, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
So let's talk about this. So somebody, right, say a man, he's been living on a piece of land for say 15 years.
Yes.
Yes. And he's been paying the property taxes. So he must say,
Yeah.
I pay the tax every year, so my land.
Yeah.
The original owner migrated. Right? Now the owner, obviously no one for understand like what's happening.
Yes.
Can he claim ownership of this land?
So, yes, that person possibly could.
Possibly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have something in Jamaica called adverse possession. And
Yes.
if you have been in possession of property for 12 or more years undisturbed, without the permission of the original owner, you might have a position to make an application to the court.
Ooh.
So yes, again though, that requires affidavit evidence from people who are from the area. So you can't just say, yes, I've been here for 12 years. Who can attest to that fact? Right? So you need person. So yes, so if somebody's migrated, one of the things I encourage as a tip, put up a no trespass sign. Have somebody go there every year and
Just check.
bush up the place. Cut the lawns.
Right.
Possibly put up a fence. If you leave your land abandoned, you're leaving yourself open to people taking advantage of a situation like that. So yes, Jamaica is very much open to squatter rights.
Oh,
Oh
Yes.
my gosh.
I never know that.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Find your perfect Kia model today. Visit our showrooms to join the movement that inspires. The temperature brought to you by Kia is
31 degrees Celsius right here in Kingston City and 29 degrees Celsius out west in Montego Bay. Alright guys, we are here with Sophia D. Bryan Esquire. It's all things real estate. You understand? And a lot of scenarios that, you might have heard somebody in before or you may have found yourself in before, right? We're giving you all the information you need so you're going to get caught up in these problems. And if you do, what to do about it and who to call. So, another very common one, Sophia. Gambilan pan family land, Gambil also rather pan family land
Yeah.
without a title.
Yeah.
So, for example, somebody builds a house, yes, on a family land, but now a sibling wants to sell. She has no title. What do they do?
Right. So that was a bad decision.
Yeah.
That was not so really and truly you're going to have a conversation with everybody in the family about
Yeah.
how you can possibly recoup your funds. Because unless say the person who can be easily identified as the owner, if they are not willing to go through the process to secure a title, as they say in Jamaica, you goose cook.
Yes.
Right? And so if you and them get into any type of entanglings, you're going to have to, go to the Supreme Court, make an application. Of course, that's not a cheap endeavor. And so people really, I raise this scenario, I'm happy you raise this scenario as a precautionary tale to say
Yeah.
to people, think twice. I know housing is a very important desire. Everybody, food, clothing, shelter,
Yes,
basic
very
needs.
basic need.
But think very carefully about you before taking that step to build on family land. Construction is not cheap either.
It's not.
Right? So if you're going to do it, make sure you have some type of agreement in writing, right? So that you can fall back on that. Or, just wait your turn and build up and find something of your own if your family is not working together in a cohesive manner where that's concerned.
Because I've seen people pack up left their house with them build much years per family land because family say they must come off of their land.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, sometimes family will tell you, hey, it's okay.
Oh, yes.
Just build this some man with
Yeah,
your
man.
family.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then by the time you're going to house done and
Yeah.
you look suddenly they start give you a bad
Exactly,
face.
exactly.
And then why you have to come off of them
Yeah.
so you have to be very careful.
So if you would have been given permission, then you can't say adverse possession, because adverse possession is when you have there for 12 or more years undisturbed without the permission of the owner. So if the person gave you permission to stay there and you were in continuous communication with them, it's going to be very difficult for you to prove that you have a superior title to them or you have a greater right to the property
Yes.
simply because you built on it. So just be very careful about that.
Whoa. No, I want to talk about how do you deal with an inherited property when someone comes out of the woodwork, right?
Yeah.
So 30 years later, and they're claiming a share
Yeah.
what do you do? Because do I believe that them is supposed to get, 30 years done pass and gone long time, you know. You understand? But don't count out your share long time, use the money the long time. So
Bob Marley, anybody? All right, so fortunately, we have a lot of technological advances to prove paternity and to prove lineage, and so somebody would be hard pressed to demonstrate that. But if it is a case where they do have a right, if everything has been sold off already, there's nothing to claim. Well, unfortunately, that's that. Unless it's a case where it can be shown that there was a clue that this person, was out there when nobody could find them. So really, you have to prove that you are in fact a member of this family and that you're entitled to access anything. It's not just a word of mouth type of situation.
No, sir.
I'm the long lost daughter.
Yeah.
Hey. Okay, last one. Imagine a woman, right, who legally owns her home, but her ex still lives there and refuses to leave. What are the legal options in such cases? Why some people are leeching?
I know. So that person is what's called a licensee. So the ex who don't want to leave, they're a licensee. And unfortunately, if somebody's behaving like that, you're going to have to take them to court. You have to serve them a proper notice to quit. And then you have to, if they don't leave within that specified period, then you go straight to court. The good thing about giving a notice to quit to a licensee is that you don't have to wait 30 days. The moment you give them a notice, say leave tomorrow, and they don't leave, you march up to the court and say, please, Madam Registrar, I need a court date ASAP.
Yes.
And you get to go there and bring them to court in a situation like that. Hopefully, if it wasn't a common law union situation, then it might be a little bit more complicated than that. So if the person is leeching, chances are they can't afford a lawyer, thankfully, and so they might not go the distance to actually get legal advice and determine if they do have a legal right and file paperwork and all of that. But you have to give them a notice to quit. You have to follow the protocol as if they were a tenant in your property. Yeah.
It's interesting because we had this topic, a similar topic on the show, Kareem, where we're asking if you start dating someone as a man, but this woman owns her own home, would you move in with her? Yeah. And of course, for all the men, it was a resounding no. Now I'm moving on to woman's house. Now I do that because woman will throw them out and this and that. How am I going to do it? Right? So I suppose in this case here, it's pretty similar, right?
It is.
Yes, but because, all you have to do is communicate, though. Like, if you don't have anywhere else to go, just ask her, can you give me
some
a
people
month
wicked, some people
to
not give
find
no
an
month.
apartment? But I'm going like,
Yeah,
come
for come on.
Exactly.
I would have thrown them out on them feet.
Yes, you have to come out. You have to come out.
No, but imagine you own your space, right? Your home is a sanctuary. You're not on good terms. Why should you be in this uncomfortable
because
situation?
you make me come in your house, Sophia, and you tell me for moving and I don't tell her this, I'm not coming in here, and you tell me for come, now you want me to come out, me not coming out yet, you have to wait till you find somewhere.
That is fair.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if we have to go to court, if we have to go that extreme, the court is going to give the person a little bit of time.
Love that for us.
Because their argument is, if the situation was reversed, the man they would have thrown the woman.
Not just so.
And this and that.
Right.
But just real quickly, Sophia, before you go, so someone on YouTube, Leroy Rotti, is asking, can you please ask the lawyer why when an owner sells his or her house or land, the purchaser has to make the payment to the seller's lawyer? I hate that idea.
Oh, okay. So they want to just bypass. Well, the reality is, attorneys are in the mix to allow for checks and balances. Because the reality is, if the money is received by the law firm, then they have the fiduciary duty to ensure that the money is used for the way that is supposed to be used. And we also have money laundering regulations now. And so we have to make sure that the source of the funds are from a legitimate means. So that's also another layer of protocol. Yes. Because if it's from illicit means, you might get in trouble for accepting those monies.
Wow.
So it's a way to protect you as the buyer and the purchaser as well. Buyer, purchaser and seller as well. Everybody everybody's protected because lawyers are there to provide for checks and balances and the due diligence. And the reality is, what if the sale falls through and you have the money and spend it?
Yeah.
Right? Who, where you going to find it from?
Yeah.
Whereas we hold on to it until the thing is complete, and then you get your money free and clear.
Yeah.
Wow.
Easy. Lemon squeezy.
I guess, the moral of any of these stories, guys, just ensure that you do the right thing and get paperwork. And
Paperwork is important
Yeah.
because then you have a leg to stand on. If you said, we had a discussion about this and this is the way forward, when it comes on to deadlift situation, make sure you have your family meeting. One of the things I do when I have family meetings with people is ask them if you can record it via Zoom.
Yes.
So that nobody can say, oh, I didn't agree to this. No, it's recorded. It's there for everybody to see. This is what we all agreed to.
Yeah.
Right?
well.
Whoa. Okay. How can they reach out to you, Sophia?
Yes, go to thelawbossfirm.com. Follow me on TikTok, Lawboss Jamaica, and contact number 876-990-7313.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sophia, for another great session.
Love it.
Definitely learned a lot. Yes, that was all things real estate. We're going to hand things back to DJ Jerome.
Yeah.